I love asking questions.
Just subsection.
I like that.
It's okay. At this point, you gotta accept it. You know? No, it's a problem. We're gonna deal with it. I don't know.
So she might have won.
No, not really. Not really. I don't like people staring at me. There's a problem. Like that. Every year has a different time. I look at the face so they're just lying. We're all, yes, we're just one large cluster.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But like,
Thank you.
not everybody's gonna be.
Feelings?
I told them to originally, like, to, what did you just say? I bet if they were showing it, I think some of them would.
You're right, you're right.
You mean you have to be able to see your face?
No, I mean in terms of like taking what's like inside and bringing it out into the surface. I mean, I think part of the issue is that people get excited. And so, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like rain is just going like up and down. Yeah, she's got 2 years. Just wait. Just wait. Yeah, me and then yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You can't stop what?
We can't stop talking about it next year already.
That's for when we do it, so other students will say.
I've been wanting, I was even planning in our major when I first started going, but I wanted to show it again.
Yeah, well, the reason why I decided not to minors and
I was like,
I wanted this.
are you serious?
No, I mean, this was like freshman year. Obviously, it's changed a lot. But that was a big factor of why I changed.
I know I really added art as my other
And a lot of it is like
freshman
not
year, and now I
necessary to really, you know,
I was making
background,
yeah.
background low level that's just sort of there.
Right,
And like sort of like brings it.
And
Even though a lot of it is,
My brain just like shuts off.
even in the summer, it's just like,
I don't know. Have to be a big sweater.
I love it.
Did you drive it? Yeah. Oh, you could?
Sorry?
You want to leave the show?
I know.
That's all you see.
Well, I'm not validated, so. You look like you're gonna present, like you're gonna introduce her. What? You look like you're gonna introduce her.
I'm behind the camera.
I know. As soon as you said that, I was like, oh no, camera.
You guys, you're too mature on camera, so you're gonna be there.
Okay, thank you for coming. My name is January. I'm currently majoring in graphic design and I love to illustrate. And this was the work that I have done during my senior years. And there are mainly landscapes that I have encountered during my life. And that's it. Enjoy them.
tell us more about, so you have like several series, can you say a little bit more about each series?
Sure, so this series, they're based on a Chicago landscape. They're, well, something like that I see in my daily routines. And that is about it. And this for my beach scenes that I did for Kelly class. Yeah.
January, where was this beach at?
Oh, it's supposed to represent the Rogers Park Beach. Because that's where like I grew up. Well, I lived there for like 5 years. So I go there a lot. Yep.
So it's different times of day, right?
It's supposed to represent, no. Okay, yeah.
You know about this?
Those are like the places that I have been to. You want me to name?
Sure.
Okay, the first one is New York. That is supposed to be Niagara Falls. The second one is in Mexico. The third one is in North Carolina. I think the one is in Florida. Yeah.
And you work in the front wall?
Oh, those are the interior design that I also see daily. The one over there is Johnson. The middle one is, is where I live. And then the third one is the train station. Like, I used to take the CTA every day, so yeah. And those are the books covered that I'm like interested in working towards to improve. And that's it.
Were these like, is there any specific reason you chose these 3 books, or were there just kind of ones that came to your mind first?
Those are something that I'm interested in to work towards when I graduated. And those are the books I used to read when I was in high school, and it's kind of like reminds me of the time I was in there. It reminds me of the old friends, the old memories. That's about it.
So what you'd like to do is like book design or book jacket design, that's something you're interested in?
Yes, like anything book design, text design. I'm interested in towards that. Video, poster design too. Okay.
Do you think, like, oh, go ahead. Somebody else that wanted to, okay. I like this combination of things that is happening where these, like the initial prompts is something that's very personally attached to you and your own narrative, right? Like these are the places that I've inhabited or that I've spent time or that I see daily or the books that I liked, right? But like they're so clear, they're so clearly designed and like so well articulated and like they're so appealing in their like the way that they're formally structured that I feel like it is immediately not only recognizable but like this is something that I remember having a conversation about these several months ago of like being pulled in, right, as a viewer to like look more. And I think that that's happening sometimes perspectively. I think that that's sometimes happening like through nostalgia and recognizability and just color attraction, right? So like, how does that work for you as a designer? Do you feel like there's a benefit to having an emotional attachment to what you're making? Like, how would you do that for designing someone else's book, for example? Like,
Oh, okay. I don't know, like, I see things probably other people might see differently, so
Yeah.
probably the color palettes.
yeah. So, like, I like that. Like, I like that idea that, like, this is not just the language, but this is me being invested in attaching my memory with that language, you know? Like, it feels like it makes the design stronger, the fact that you've got that personal attachment to it. It's not just Chicago, it's like your Chicago, you know?
Yeah, I mean, and that's what makes it different than it just being a copy of like a photograph, is that it does feel like it's your work. You know, if I saw these sitting amongst things in the art building, I'd be like, oh yeah, that's January's. You know, that it feels like you're starting to develop your own style and able to execute that really nicely across different techniques. So I think I told you this before, like it's nice to see your approach to the vector drawings and then the more raster, like digital painting, and have it all still feel like it makes sense together in the same space.
Which is your favorite out of all of these?
I probably like the book design the most.
Yeah.
I have to say though, like there's so many, the longer I spend looking at things, the more I'm excited I get about seeing them. And I feel like there's also so much visual intelligence in the way you put things together in sets too. Like when I'm looking at these three and the kind of way they make so much sense, like as designed together, and they work really beautifully each on their own, but like together they do something else that like feels heightened to me a little bit. Just like something about like the weird position that I'm placed in, or the way like all of a sudden I'm just aware of how far away from the sculpture of the bean I am, right? I feel like I'm like moving away from it instead of closer to it or something. Like there's something really strange that happens for me in each of those three where just, I don't know. It's really interesting. I'm not sure I'd notice it if I just saw one.
Yeah.
And the ones on the front wall too, like when I'm looking at those, I'm really aware of how framed they are as images, like how you're using the architecture as a device to frame each image. And I was saying to Maya, like, these would be so beautiful framed, like you could just sell these off.
Yeah, absolutely.
Take home and stick in a frame and it's ready to go. It's really, like, they're really lovely.
I also really enjoy the one on the end, because that's a newer one, right?
Yeah.
Because it does such a nice job of like wrapping us around the wall. So you have all of these with a certain perspective. The ones on the other side are like 1 point perspective, and then having that one be 1 point perspective. Like it just feels like it's a nice transition from these vacation spots that you're remembering to a more like concrete, like these are the things happening in the city or in your spaces or the spaces you're going through. So that's just a really nice addition to this series here.
I also enjoy these beach areas, since we also share the similar memories in terms of, we grew up with her. And also, I also enjoy the atmosphere effect in the background, which is really stunning. So yeah.
I agree. The color in those are like just like really a pleasure to look at. Just that sky. Really good.
That particular project, the Rogers Park project, feels, well, the book covers definitely feel like a narrative image, but these feel like literally as a kind of narrative. I'd be curious to see at some point if you have interest in doing like an illustrated book kind of thing. I think I'd suggest you can do that real well. It also seems to me references, again, this may not be at all of your interest, but references like flippics in art history where you have multiple times in a story that are being represented. But it's done with this color, sense of color, that's very now.
I was going to ask, I've noticed a lot of like architecture in your pieces and stuff, and I know you talked about that a little bit with like the familiar landscape and connections to childhood and stuff. perspective being a focus on stuff. So I was wondering if there's like anything that draws you into architecture and perspective in particular, or it's just like,
Oh, that's probably because since I'm like majoring in graphic design, like the geometry shapes, like all those shapes, they're like clean. I don't know how to describe it, but like.
that's like just when they pop up the most to you.
That's interesting, thinking of graphic design as being like something built in the way that architecture is built, or like composed as the way architecture is composed. Like that makes me think about connections I don't think I necessarily knew before.
It's like the dark gray.
Yeah, what's the dark
That's
gray?
like the thing that's like making me feel like all of a sudden my place is strange.
Well, also that there's shapes that don't have any detail whatsoever.
Right.
So like the dark gray and like it flattens the image out. So when you look at it, it feels like it can either be like a complete flat shape or it could be tipping down, and so it does like a weird.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah.
But it's done at the right. It's done at the right angle, so it just makes it weird because you're like, wait.
Is it a platform? Is it a barrier? Or is it just a bar of tone? Yeah, it's so strange.
Yeah.
And this one, like all the tippy weirdness of it, it's really interesting. Like when